Hey everyone, in this video we're gonna be breaking down the following typical themes for the King's Indian attack. How to exploit an early developed queen, how to react against the early e4 push, how to exploit king in the center, and at the end of the video I will show you the best setup that you can use in order to be successful with the King's Indian attack. Alright, so we're getting the white pieces, gonna be starting with knight f3 against d5. So now opponent plays e6, just gonna be going for the fianchetto, and pretty excited about this game because when they're doing the e6 setup, you can actually play the King's Indian attack fashion with knight e2 and d4. We see here a pretty strange queen f6 move because he's breaking one of the most basic opening principles, that he's developing the queen early, and I guess we're just gonna stick with the normal play. By the way, here d4 is also very doable. I just wanted to keep it sort of, just typical for the King's Indian attack with e4 push. Gonna be going for it immediately. Maybe e5 ideas. Takes once, gonna be taking back. Play with c3. Goes knight g6. We're actually like super close to trap his queen. It's just that he has queen b2. But that is still not helping because of the checkmate, so actually getting a pretty sweet trap here with bishop g5, and only square is this one, but that allows checkmate, which is gonna allow a pretty funny and standard pattern. Let's see if my opponent allows the checkmate on the border. He will give up the queen. Yeah, okay, so he takes on b2, but simply go for the checkmate. I guess that was best try for him, but not good enough. Gonna try out another King's Indian attack. Gonna play with g3, and we see knight c6, which is maybe could indicate that the opponent's trying to play the Chigorin defense. Ideas to go with e5, but that's not really bothering me since I'm fine with him expanding in the center. Just gonna play with like d3, and then I'm gonna castle short, following it up with knight b2, d2, and e4 generally. So let's see how opponent plans to deal with this. Goes knight f6. Like some people that generally play with knight c6, they tend to play a bit more aggressive with long castle, and I think we've had that in like the previous video. But to me it seems like this opponent will just play normal with short castle after playing knight f6, and it's a question where do they want to put this bishop. I think anywhere it's fine, objectively speaking. I was thinking in this position whether it makes sense to go bg5 or not, but came to the conclusion that it's not such a big deal if we manage to get this trade, so I'm generally just gonna be playing knight bd2. Idea to play with e4, and then depending how they react, we're gonna be taking back with a pawn on e4 and maybe use knight c4 ideas. But e4, this is not something that I was aware of, and I'm not familiar with this variation. I'm thinking just to go d knight g5, and to me it seems like we are winning a pawn. As simple as that. He has e3, of course, sacrificing, but I don't think that black should be having enough compensation here. And yeah, bishop f5 obviously won't save the pawn, because I already have 3 attackers against only 2 defenders. And he was supposed to go e3. I have to take with the f pawn. I'm up a pawn, but I have 2 double pawns, which I think I'm still better, but it's definitely not as good as being up a healthy pawn, like I am in this position after knight takes on e4. And yeah, from this point, you know the strategy. We'll just try to exchange as many pieces as we can while keeping an active position. Knight takes on e4, just gonna be taking with a knight. So I said we want to exchange pieces, and some of you may be wondering, isn't bishop takes on e4 a good move to exchange pieces? So we want to exchange pieces, but we also want to keep our good pieces in the process, and the g2 bishop is actually one of our best pieces. Like the fianchetto bishop is always huge in all the structures. Like sometimes even the fianchetto bishop might be stronger than a rook. I mean, imagine, let's say in some positions you can take the enemy rook, but then your king becomes weak, and from that perspective, fianchetto bishop is huge, and that's why I'm gonna be taking with a knight. I mean, objectively speaking, taking with the bishop is still much better for white, but what I'm trying to say is that knight takes on e4 is generally the best move, keeping the fianchetto bishop and threatening to take on d6. So if you also think about this theme in a lot of opening variations, black has a plan like going bishop g4, queen d7, and then bishop h3. making 3 moves trying to get rid of this strong bishop. And in this position, if you think about it that way, if we are taking back with the bishop, we're giving him that for free. And that is generally something we should try to avoid if possible. I mean, if not, taking with the bishop was still good because we're already so much better with the extra pawn that it doesn't really matter that much. But you want to understand these small little details, and then it's going to be much easier to make those decisions during the game. And after opponent takes on e4 in the game, you can just take and just look at this beautiful bishop. Okay, again, that's doable, trading pieces, but bishop is so powerful. You already caught the idea. I think I'm just gonna be playing c3, and I'm preparing queen c2. Then trying to find a useful square for this guy. Maybe I'll play queen c2 and we decide depending on how he's willing to defend against this move. He's attacking, that is fine. But I'll just play queen c2 first, hitting the pawn. In case of g6, I wanted to say that bishop h6 could be interesting. But now that it's no longer coming with a tempo, I'm not sure that I'm gonna be playing it. Could also do a move something like b4 or b5. I could play rook d1 as well, then expecting queen e7, hitting the bishop. Thinking about like a super simple way to deal with this. I think simplest is just to go back with the bishop, now that we created a weakness, and you can just continue developing. Bishop on e5 is not like amazing. Yeah, I think you can just play bishop h6. Bishop is relatively annoying there. You can just finish development, bring the rook over. Could play queen b3 like any time. Just need to speed up with this a bit. Okay, gonna collect the free pawns in the meantime. Hitting the rook. Just go back. Knight f5. Can drop the bishop. Actually, starting with rook d1 is even more clever because after he moves the queen, we can retreat all the way back to c1, and that is a really nice move because the bishop won't be blocking the connection between my rooks, which is really important. In general, you should really keep your rooks connected because they're working much better this way. Now we can just play e4, attacking the knight. Time to expand. Could go f4, but maybe he wants knight e4, so can protect that pawn. Then go f4, e5. I'll have to speed up a bit because I'm not having that much time left on the clock, but I hope I'm not gonna be going too fast with this and we can still get some instructive plays. Threatening e5 and bishop c6 in some lines. Have to watch out for queen c5 though. Okay, can develop now. Could have started with e5 as well, but I think this is even better. Just go e5. Knight f5, maybe bishop d5. I'll actually prefer to keep the bishop on knight f5. Simply bishop f2 is even better. Threat to play bishop d5 and this guy is actually trapped. Also b3 is a threat. Rook is really misplaced on c4. We're up 2 pawns, everything is defended. Position is objectively very good. Yeah, I know, can just pick up the rook with a check. They should never play f6. Actually, f6 made some sense in this position because he's trying to activate the bishop, but it was just not quite working yet. And on king h8, I'm actually gonna take on f6, trying to go for the checkmate because he has issues on the file, and he actually resigned, didn't try to flag me, so that's actually pretty nice behavior by my opponent. I don't really expect a lot of guys to resign in this kind of positions. Okay, getting the white pieces. I'm gonna be going knight f3, following it up with the fianchetto. And okay, e5. Opponent blunders the pawn. We can definitely take that, but keeping the game more interesting, gonna be going with d3, giving him the chance to defend it and just trying to get a position that is quite thematic and highlight the main plans and ideas rather than cashing in a free pawn, which I consider not being that instructive. So we see that the opponent plays super aggressive with f5, thinking to just break with e4 immediately. Yeah, e4 looks good to me, opening up the position. King is in the center. This is definitely a very strong move. He can't really take twice because of knight g5. At least winning back the pawn, and he's got isolated pawn on e5. So problem with this move is that I think I can actually get away with taking on f5, and we managed to steal that pawn. So he probably has to take and go knight f6. Okay, knight e7 looks a bit too passive for my taste, and I think we have an instructive tactic. ed5, cd5 does not look quite amazing for me. I think we're supposed to go pawn takes on f5 and then thinking about knight e5. But now another candidate is knight g5. I did play knight e6, but you can simply defend with knight there. So I think pawn takes should be the way to go. and then just knight e5 type of ideas, followed by rook e1, bishop d6, and then d4. I think that should be waiting free pawn thanks to the pin. This is actually, by the way, a very typical motif for these lines. I actually got this quite a lot in these structures. You want to be keeping an eye on these motifs with knight e5 when the king is in the center. Because now after d4, we managed to win back the piece and we keep the extra pawn, which is like really important. I think he still maybe keeps compensation after castles and bishop c5. I think we are still better there, even though it's not like the easiest position to play ever. Okay, he does this move, but now I think he's just a win on the spot for me. Because we have even material, but I have a huge threat of rook takes on e5. His king is still in the center. So yeah, can definitely take this one. The only thing that's concerning me is whether he has rook e8 at the end of the variation with ideas to go for the back ranker. But against it, I think we have only move queen c3, which wins. And we're gonna be getting into a very interesting position where I have two minors for the rook. And I think this is a very hot topic, especially for beginners. Because if you do the math, like two minors are very similar to the rook. Because if a minor has 3 points and the rook has 5, this is generally gonna lead to a close number. And let's even say, let's make the number even. So a rook is 5, pawn is 1. Yeah, we had two minors. Yeah, 3 plus 3 equals 5 plus 1, obviously. So that may give you the wrong impression that two minors are as good as the rook and the pawn. And the rook can be super effective in the endgame if there are a lot of open files and it can switch between flanks easily. But here we have a middle game where I think pieces are huge in general, and much more often you'll see the two minor pieces taking over the rook, especially in the middle game. So after rook e8 now, as I was mentioning, queen d4 would be a blunder because they can go rook e1, and then after bishop h3, I'm actually getting insta checkmated. So should just play queen c3, keep that square under control, and then we need to finish development and we have a winning position. Thinking to develop with bishop f4 and knight e2. Bishop e3 could also be interesting, but yeah, I'm actually liking bishop e3 more. He's trying to jab bait me here, giving the pawn, but then he's got checkmate with bishop h3. That's pretty funny. Not gonna be taking that. I think I like bishop e3. Although bishop e3, maybe I'm giving away tricks. Yeah, bishop e3, d4, and I'm forced to take, and we might be running into trouble. Like bishop d4, maybe even queen d4 is an idea. And queen d4, rook e1 check. Bishop f1, bishop h3. But okay, then I have queen d3 defending, so that does not quite work. Doesn't do the job. So I think bishop e3, d4, bishop takes on d4 is quite safe now that I'm like considering more seriously. Would have been really funny though if this won for black. Yeah, I think bishop e3 is like the move that you want to get in the structure because we're restricting the rook and we're just trying to finish development. a4 could be a nice positional idea generally to use this hook, but definitely wouldn't go for it when we're not developed. Queen e7, I think could start grabbing, but generally just keep it simple. Get yourself developed first before calculating any crazy variations. Position is like winning anyways without winning that pawn, so you just need to keep it simple. Okay, c5 gives me a lot of stuff. I think easiest one would be this one, cashing in the rook, and yeah, position should be easily winning. Oh, almost mouse slipped. Gonna be taking that, and queen c5, just entering the trading pieces mode. Gonna be constantly harassing my opponent with a lot of offers to trade. If we trade queens, that's basically an instant win. So he should try to keep them on, but I'm gonna be simping for a queen trade. I'm gonna play knight e4. I need to go queen d6. It's not like we can't win without the queen trade, just that it makes it much easier. So yeah, just queen d6. Already it's hard for him to decline the trade because he has to watch out for the bishop. I don't really care about him winning the pawn on c2. We're up a piece and pawn is not really that important. More important that we get the queen trade. I mean, he can avoid the queen trade with queen f7, but then knight g5 and then we win a piece. And maybe the better try was queen e8, but still looks very passive. I mean, probably simply play something like rook e1 and he has huge problems with the bishop. I I guess queen f7, just knight g5, creating a double attack, and now we're winning another piece, and most likely gonna trade queens as well, otherwise my opponent will get checkmated. Maybe we can get, try to hope for a smothered mate, that would be pretty funny. So he ends up playing queen d7, but can just take the bishop with check and forcing the queen trade. C-rook takes on c2, but that's not really helping. Could think about defending this pawn. It's not really that important though, so I think we should prioritize active play, giving the b2 pawn so we can get rook d7, rook takes on g7. That would be even better. Goes king f7, throw in a check, rook d6. I mean, we're getting close to a mating net. King f5 probably has to be played, and then we do have a forced mate somehow. I don't see it quite yet, but I know it's there. Still struggling to find it. Okay, how about we play this move? I'm gonna bring my king, and then we could do g4, bishop f4. That would be pretty nice if he keeps collecting. Okay, I wanted this. King f5, and then still the same king f3 motive with idea to mate with a pawn. Would be pretty nice if we can get the pawn checkmate. Yeah, there we go. We get the pawn checkmate, and that actually ended up being a pretty nice maneuver to bring the king to create a mating net. Completely unnecessary. You could just do this and take, but that was even nicer, I think. Kicking the white pieces. Gonna try out the King's Indian attack and see what my opponent has in mind. I'm gonna go g3, bishop g2, castle short. See, an awkwardly placed knight on c6 already. Gonna play d3 so that we don't run into e4. Just make sure they don't throw that in your face, and you should be good to go. Just get a castle. e4 is not a good move because we take and have better endgame, and yeah, getting into like pretty standard positions. Knight f6, gonna be castling, and then typically just playing knight e2 followed by e4, and we take it from there. Yeah, going e4. Expect a lot of people to take on e4, and we're taking back with a pawn and just play a positional game. Pretty slow stuff. c3, queen c2 maybe, slash queen e2, knight c4 ideas. Just a very kind of slow maneuvering game. But after d4, we're gonna get into some spicy King's Indian attack kind of stuff. And I have two ways of playing this one actually. One of them is with knight h4. But I think knight e1 is even more instructive, because we could get in the f4 attacking stuff, and it's like really important before playing f4 not to rush with it, because that would allow black to go knight g4 to e3, which is like a huge square. And in order to avoid that, remember that the critical idea is to play h3, taking that under control, and we're pretty much ready to roll next with f4, and we're getting really good attack there. So you see black is trying to attack me on this side. I'm gonna be attacking on the king, and generally this is gonna be more effective for us because we can afford like losing pawns on the queen side, or allow him to pretty much win all this flank. If we can get a mating attack, that's all that matters at the end of the day. So this is why this strategy is generally super effective when they allow us. Just gonna be pushing pawns and generally getting a pretty huge attack. Just go g4, and it's a question of how do we make progress, because I could go for like the immediate g5, knight e7, queen h5 slash f6 stuff, but I think I'm gonna play it slower for you. Play it in like a King's Indian fashion. Just go rook f2, which is a nice multi-purpose move, just covering this rank whenever they'll do like knight b4 and opening up lines there. And we have this typical regroupment with rook coming to g2, and then we get to push this way. h6 is actually a pretty bad move because this is what we call a hook, and it's named a hook because if we had to push h4 g5, it's actually taking more time to open up the position, because we additionally will need to push h5 and g6. But now after h6, this actually, instead of slowing down our attack, which is the initial idea behind it, will only speed it up, because we get to push g5 and attacking this pawn immediately, making it easier for us to open lines. So you just go rook g2, could also start with h4. If I start h4, knight h7, that might be a little bit awkward for me. I have to play rook g2. Need to be a bit careful because opponent might try to set up a blockade, which is actually not so easy to break, but we'll need to somehow get this h4 move in. And I think the way to do that is playing knight f3 and queen e1. Idea to go h4. Opponent doing a reasonable job in slowing down the attack so far, but if we manage to go queen e1 and h4, that is definitely gonna be giving me a pretty decisive attack. So I think I can go queen e1, h4, but like queen e1, knight b4 is actually a little bit annoying. Bishop g5, I'm thinking to take, but then maybe he wants to take it this way, and it's actually not easy to make progress, perhaps. I don't quite buy that. Let's take. I think I have a nice idea if they take with the h pawn. I actually wanted to go knight f3, f6, and then I think we can easily break with h4. Pawn takes and then g5. I think that was giving us great attack. And after knight takes, I was thinking to go h4, but perhaps knight h3 could be a problem. King h2 and then queen takes on h4. However, we have knight f3 in that position, and maybe there's knight f2 still. I feel like the knight is getting trapped, but there's actually no need to allow these complications when you can just go king h2 first, or even rook g3. Might be even nicer. Keeping everything defended and preparing to, yeah, just push the pawn. I like rook g3 over king h2 because we're avoiding any potential tricks with queen coming over with check when the king was placed there. So I'm just going for this idea. When the knight goes back, we play knight f3, continue with g5, and white is just getting a devastating attack. And it's like really, it's just a winning position at this point already, because opponent has no counterplay on this side of the board. Should normally already have threats on this side, on the queen side, but they have no moves. This is a nice idea trying to bring the rook, but it's not really gonna help that much. Knight has to go back now, and then we play knight f3. We see knight e6, which is actually just blundering the knight. For educational purposes, I could still play knight f3 and try to go for the attack. I think I'm actually gonna do that. I'm not gonna be taking the free piece just because I wanna actually show you why the pawns are so powerful. He plays knight f4, which is like a bit problematic. I've seen he has that move. Decided to allow it anyways for educational purposes, and now could actually get rid of it. Could also ignore it and play g5. That might be even better. It's not like the knight alone can do that much, and with g5 I'm already having ideas to take. Maybe at this point it's already time to consider something like knight b8. Ideas to bring the rook over, but then I can easily play something like bishop captures, pawn captures, rook g4. So we see h5, which is slowing down the attack for now, but the pawn will be weak there in the long run, and can actually take care of this by eliminating the knight and then stepping back with a rook. Simple plan, queen d2 and takes. Also I have g6 idea, which is kind of mating. The opponent got a little bit of counterplay because he has the e5 square, but that's not really gonna help that much. And f6, it's a bad move because it allows me to play g6, and okay, he's just making it really easier with this, but it's also quite instructive because you get to see one of the typical mating patterns with a queen coming over, and gonna be getting a checkmate very soon, or at least winning a lot of material. This is only move, but check twice, win g7, push pawns, just an easy win. Okay, bishop c8, but we just get the checkmate, which is pretty nice. Thanks a lot for making it this far into the video, and in case you're looking for more episodes from the same series, make sure to click one of the videos that will appear on the screen. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you around on the channel. Take care.